Welcome
Welcome.
to our new podcasting studio and to the Crying Out Cloud podcast, the podcast that will make you laugh, cry, and reconsider all of your cloud security fears. I'm Eden, and this is Amitai, my amazing co-host. And today we're going to give you the lowdown on a lot of news. It's been a hot sec. We're going to take you through everything that's been going down. You'll be incredibly well-informed and in the zeitgeist. Okay. What is our topics for today?
So today we're going to be talking about the latest in WordPress core vulnerabilities.
You probably heard about this one. It was a big deal.
WP2 shell. We're going to be talking a bit about TeamPCP and mostly Microsoft/GitHub's reaction in terms of the mitigations that they've been applying to make TeamPCP's life more difficult, which is a good thing for everybody. We're going to talk about a few recent vulnerabilities that for some reason people like to incorporate blood in vulnerability names.
They're calling them.
And we're going to talk a bit about agentic platform risks and how this is sort of a new type of vulnerability.
Surprise.
Yeah. Every day there's a new thing going on because that's the age that we live in. And we'll be talking a bit about a recent interesting AI hack of Instagram and a bit about Instush, as it's known in the Holy Land.
Okay, so the first one, the vulnerabilities in WordPress. There were two, and they gave an unauthenticated actor full remote code execution on like default WordPress installations, which is a really big deal.
Yes.
And hits a very wide target audience. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So WordPress is super common. People like to say that it powers like a huge percentage of the internet, which is probably true. WordPress plugins are commonly targeted for exploitation. They often have vulnerabilities. They can be malicious. There's all sorts of bad stuff going on there. WordPress on its own is super secure and very rarely has significant vulnerabilities. So any new RCE vulnerability in WordPress is going to make the news, and it did.
And like WizData show that 60% of organizations using WordPress had at least one vulnerable instance, which is mega.
Yeah, and what's kind of important here is that WordPress is often auto-updated. So these vulnerabilities were actually only introduced like a year ago. So that kind of goes to show that people are patching them fast enough, which is a good thing. But that also means that as new vulnerabilities are introduced, that means that you also pick them up.
Yeah.
So like in this case, if someone hadn't patched WordPress in a while, they would have actually been more secure. But that isn't the lesson here.
Don't take that as a takeaway.
Yeah.
It's being exploited in the wild actively.
Yeah.
And tell us more. Do we know any of
So we don't really know like the actors that are doing this, but we do definitely see a lot of exploitation. We see people testing out the POC exploits that were published, using them to deploy malware, using them to deploy web shells. All of that is going on. We're still kind of trying to figure out if like what threat actors can actually do with this beyond just putting web shell, because the website itself would need to have interesting information or interesting permissions in order for an attacker to actually do
something
more with
interesting.
this.
Yeah. And do they know how they found it?
Yeah. So this was discovered by AI, specifically Searchlight Cyber, Asset Note. They spoke about how they used GPT 5.6 Sol in order to find this vulnerability, which is really cool.
This is not a sponsored episode.
It is not, but I mean, it's going to come up. It's going to keep coming up because this is just how it goes.
Crazy.
My favorite meme lately has been how the credits list in a lot of patch notes have become huge because the same vulnerability is being reported in parallel by like 50 different people.
Crazy.
Because they're all using their harnesses in order to find this vulnerability, and they're all using the same models, and the models all find the same vulnerabilities. So it's been very interesting. Like people sitting on bug bounty and on
so it's
security
gonna have
teams.
to make like AI trophy shelves.
Yeah, like participation. You participated in this vulnerability alongside 100 other people that also found it. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
In this case, though, it was unique to them. I don't think anybody else reported it.
So what should listeners do?
So I mean, patch. If you're using WordPress on a lot of the big providers, I think already patch this stuff for you, and I think they also provide WAF rules to protect you from exploitation. That isn't like a full blown protection. You do need to patch, but that does give you some time before things get bad. And patching is easy, so just patch.
Patch. Okay. Next story, TeamPCP and Microsoft's supply chain mitigations. TeamPCP is an active threat actor. They are compromising open source artifacts, and it is affecting many customers. TeamPCP is responsible for why Amitai has slept a lot less this past year, so he loves them.
I mean, alongside my children, but yes.
But they've targeted Light LLM, Trivy, Bitwarden, NX, and many other products. So we're going to talk about these safeguards, and if they had existed earlier, he would have lost less years of his life. So let's talk about these mitigations and changes. What are they introducing?
So I think what happened was that TeamPCP and actors, a few other actors like them that were also doing similar things in this space, mostly North Korean, were very successful at exploiting the fact that people use npm, pipey, packages, GitHub Actions on a daily basis. They have CI/CD runners that are constantly downloading the latest version of these packages from the internet, and they abuse that in order to enter the supply chain and deploy malware very rapidly by basically hijacking all of these super popular packages. Eventually, they targeted Microsoft themselves.
And then Microsoft said,
I mean, it kind of feels that way. Like, it kind of feels like, that was the point where Microsoft kind of
It's my version
changed
of the story.
I mean, that's a nice headcanon.
Yeah.
But I think bottom line, Microsoft has been doing really good work. Like Microsoft owns GitHub and NPM, which were super targeted by TeamPCP and others. And they've been incorporating lots of mitigations recently. Like every week they put out a blog post with like a new thing that they're doing to make this a lot harder. They're adding monitoring into GitHub Actions. Just today, they announced that they're going to be scanning new package versions, and only if the scan shows that everything is clean will you be able to install the package.
Oh, amazing!
That's like I think the most significant and most like aggressive thing they've done so far. But they're also forcing more people to use MFA, forcing more people to use like trusted packaging.
What about the
it
freeze
easier.
mode?
Yeah, so that's a bit similar to. That's also pretty aggressive. What they did was that if you are considered a high impact account, meaning that I think it means like if a package you own is like really popular and if a lot of people are using it, then if you make a change to your account, then they put you into like a 72-hour freeze mode where you can't do anything.
Which is really smart.
Yeah. It basically means that
if someone takes over your account, they can't go
wild immediately.
Do you think these new protections are going to stop TeamPCP, or they're just going to pivot to new techniques? Like what's going to happen as a whiplash?
I mean, historically, whenever one attack surface closes, another attack surface opens. Attackers are very adaptable. I think the most famous example is when Microsoft began disabling macros in Office files, which was heavily favored by attackers that were using it for phishing attacks, then, attackers shifted to using things like ClickFix, where they basically show you a website and ask that you copy paste the command into by doing a Windows run and then run that. So attackers find a way.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that this is like the end of TeamPCP or actors like them. It makes it a lot more difficult, which is what we want. They'll need to be more creative. They'll need to think harder about how they do these things.
Yeah, I will help them. I'm just kidding.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of the benefits you mentioned, what should listeners do? They need to update to a new version?
Yeah. So some of this stuff is on the platform, like the scanning of NPM packages, the freeze. Those are on the platform itself. Some of these things are features that they're going to be offering to GitHub users. Mm-hmm. Some of them you'll need to enable. I think the main thing that's most important at this point is that NPM version 12 has a bunch of these mitigations in place. So you do need to update to that manually in order to benefit from them.
Cool. The next topic is the bleeds. Let's start with FortiBleed. Tens of thousands of FortiGate passwords were cracked. This means this is the second time in the past year this has happened, and it affects quite a few organizations. Mm-hmm. Before we dive into this, why do appliances like FortiGate keep suffering from such massive repeated credential compromises? What's the recurring theme?
I think these are relatively old devices, which means they have a lot of legacy code that they need to deal with. It also means that even if they've improved a lot in terms of their security and made themselves much more secure today. They still have the baggage of in the past having significant vulnerabilities.
Can't
Like you can
escape your
never
history.
exactly. These are heavily targeted by threat actors for a few reasons, I think. One is they are often, as the name implies, the gateway to the organization. They often have a lot of permissions. They often store a lot of interesting data, a lot of interesting credentials. Sometimes they need to be exposed. Like ideally, they should be well protected, but in some cases, some organizations might need to keep them internet facing. And the second thing is that they are sort of black boxes in terms of security. Like you often can't install like an agent on them or traditional EDR or antivirus. And that also means
So you just
that,
have to pray.
yeah, pray and patch. And ideally, again, like put a firewall in front of it if you can, if you're using it in a way that allows for that. But yeah, I think those are the main reasons that we keep seeing these things.
Okay. Then there's SquidBleed, which sounds like a TV show, which is that an AI managed to uncover a 20-year-old memory leak vulnerability in the popular Squid proxy. What's the TLDR?
So we keep joking about the blood aspect. A lot of these things are callbacks to a vulnerability called HeartBleed, which is I think from like 2014 or so, which was a vulnerability I think in OpenSSL, which was very, very like widespread because everybody uses OpenSSL, and it was a sort of non-deterministic vulnerability where basically by exploiting the vulnerability remotely, you could get access to whatever happened to be in memory at the time, which means that one day you'll attack and you might get something interesting. One day you'll attack and you won't get anything. But obviously you don't want this to be a feature of whatever product you're running. You don't want attackers to be able to randomly access whatever's in memory. So I think SquidBleed is like in reference to that because it's a similar vulnerability in the sense that you attack Squid and then you gain access to whatever happens to be in memory at the time.
But it's interesting that this was found and it was 20 years old. Like it's going to be a very interesting road of seeing what else comes to light that's like ancient. I feel like it's like excavators in an archaeological site.
Yeah, it's like you people found a new archaeological site and everybody's coming there with their tools and then their new tools.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you have some people pointing their harnesses at new code, like scanning their pull requests into code repositories, which means that the idea is to stop vulnerabilities from being created in the first place. You have harnesses that are scanning like the code as it is now on all sorts of new code bases belonging to all sorts of like startups and relatively new products. And you have all sorts of security researchers pointing their harnesses at like ancient code like this in the hopes of finding vulnerabilities exactly like this. Just things that, even though these are code bases that many, many security researchers have been looking at over the years, just they didn't think to look for these specific ones or use these specific methods. And
Feels more like an oil mine that they've all found.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. The next topic is the Klue hack. Klue with a K. Klue is a competitive intelligence company that uses AI agents to build competitor comparison reports, and it was recently hacked. I wonder what their competition has to say about it. It's interesting because the platform is very integrated into a bunch of workplace apps like Slack, Teams, Gmail, Salesforce. And it was compromised, which put many, many organizations at risk because the attacker can steal everything the highly privileged AI agent has access to. What do we do about this?
So I think it's interesting that Klue, I think, is like the third case of a Salesforce integration that was targeted in the past year or so that had like an agentic component. On its own, this isn't especially like a new thing.
Just the blast radius of this specific organization.
Exactly. Because I think the thing is here that threat actors realize that, okay, platforms like Salesforce have a lot of interesting information. They can't necessarily target the platform directly. They can't necessarily target the customers directly, but they know that there is a supply chain here that they might be able to wiggle their way into. And what's interesting is that these third-party integrations have a lot of permissions because they have agents that need these permissions in order to function. So the AI is not necessarily the important part here, but it does seem to be a theme.
Yeah, but if they're like a world in which AI agents can have better RBAC and better permissioning.
For sure, yes.
Yeah, and better well-scoped roles.
Yep. Like ideally, if I am a company and I allow another company access to my environment, or I shouldn't need to worry too much what will happen when that if and when that company gets breached.
Yes.
Like there should be some sort of
inherent gateways.
Yeah.
What should you do if you are concerned about this?
So I think at minimum you need to have visibility into what sort of access third parties have into your various environments, whether it's SaaS, whether it's cloud. You should ideally have monitoring in place. I think beyond the risk of compromise of a third-party vendor, these are agents that are acting on your behalf within your environment. You need to have some sort of oversight into what they're doing in case they go rogue, in case they do things that you don't intend them to do. I think this is going to be a super important problem space moving forward. I think over the past few years, a lot of people have started looking into this and thinking about how to do it the best way possible. At Wiz, we're also thinking about a lot of these things as well. You need oversight, you need visibility, you need to know what's going on, and ideally you should limit their permissions to the minimum that they need.
Okay, next story. Hackers abused Meta AI vulnerability to hijack Instagram accounts. This one hits the heart.
Did it happen to you?
No, I just love Instagram. How did it happen? It was with their chatbot. What's the story?
So this is pretty interesting in the sense that I feel like this is probably one of the first times in history that this has actually happened and not been like a theoretical risk. I'm probably wrong, but it's definitely like one of the first high profile cases.
They targeted major accounts the Obama White House page, Sephora, US Space Force. They went rogue.
The idea is that Meta offered basically a technical support feature that was using an agent behind the scenes, and it turns out that someone figured out that all you need to do in order to convince the AI that you are a certain person and you've lost access and you need help gaining access is to basically fake their location.
I could use Russia, a VPN and then be in Amitai's location
and just say hi, I'm Amitai now.
If only I could.
And it definitely shouldn't be this easy. Let's say I don't think a human operator of technical support would fall for this stuff if they have good SOPs in place. And it definitely shouldn't be possible for an automated system to be able to fall for these kind of tricks. So I think there are a lot of lessons to learn here. This is probably going to keep happening unless we prevent it from happening. This isn't even prompt injection. The agent is acting on your behalf. It thinks it's acting on your behalf, but it's actually acting on behalf of an attacker in order to gain access to your account.
Okay, so then Meta finally tried to fix this, and then they just removed the get support button from the front end, which isn't the world's most perfect solution. And then the API in the back end was still vulnerable, so that's brilliant.
Yeah, that wasn't a very robust fix.
Because they just used Telegram bots to keep running with it.
No, the fact that the API remains exposed means that the
hackers would still figure out the API, and then the normal humans who want to use the support button can't. Yeah. So how do we use AI agents for sensitive tasks if they can't use good judgment sometimes?
I think there has to be some sort of deterministic checks in the background going on here. If you're going to take a process like someone's lost access to their account, they need to restore their access, then, we have solutions for these things. We have best practices. If you're going to wrap an agent around it, then the agent shouldn't invent the wheel and just, go randomly trying to figure out how best to do this. Behind the scenes, it should be the exact same system that the agent is just operating for you to make things a bit easier.
Okay. What should you do about this? Probably enable 2FA.
Yep. MFA has been a lifesaver for many. It's super, super effective. It's not infallible, but I think I love this quote. I think I think it's from Microsoft or something, where they said that it basically blocks like 80% of all attacks.
Okay, thank you for joining us for our news episode. It's been a hot second, so hopefully you feel up to speed on what's happening in the world of cybersecurity. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and share a link to the podcast, but not your cloud keys. And as always, if your cloud security strategy is making you cry, don't worry, just cry out cloud.